welcome to Tournament Center. Rich Hagan here with the Pro Tour San Diego champion Simon Goertzen. Simon, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Now, obviously, you won the Standard Pro Tour at the start of this year, where Standard was the dominant format, and day one here at Worlds is Standard. Why we want to talk to you is that when you won in San Diego, you were playing Jund, the best deck. You built your own version of it. It was slightly different to most conventional versions. It had more man lands, more land in general. You had like 28 lands, something like that.
28 sources.
That's right. So it was very much your own build, and it really paid off. Now, interestingly, here in Standard, you seem to have pulled exactly the same trick again. Because let's look down at the table, and you will see that we have a Valakut ramp deck. Green-red, and you're thinking, oh, Valakut, yeah, that's the best deck in Standard. So we're going to start right up at the top. We've got our 4, Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. I always think that this should be a legendary land, but I guess it would kind of ruin the deck if it was. Tell us just how massive this card is in the Valakut deck.
It's insanely good. It's a win condition with Primeval Titan, and basically if you are playing a control deck and you have to beat a land, it gets really complicated. You can't mana leak it, you have to have very specific answers.
Okay, that is the Valakut bit of Valakut ramp. Now our next 2 lines are the ramp bit. What is ramp? Ramp is just getting as quickly as we can to the mana we need. Now our first line here, 4 Cultivate, 4 Explore. That's exactly what you'd expect. Get extra land into play, draw a card, search my library for land. No problem there. But the next line, this is where things get really interesting. This suite of 10 cards in the middle of the table. Let's go left to right, Simon, and explain your choices here. First off, Growth Spasm. Why?
Basically, the most important reason is you can ramp up to 6 mana on turn 4 with just a single ramp spell.
Okay.
So the Eldrazi Spawn generates 1 mana. Together with 5 lands, you can cast Primeval Titan or Summoning Trap.
All right, so 6 mana is really key to this deck.
Yep.
All right, moving across. Oracle of Mul Daya. The 2/2 for 4, I guess if you had all 4 copies of this, you could end up with some very sluggish hands where you're just sitting there with 2/2s for 4, but a couple of them, the right number, you think?
Yeah, you don't want to reveal a second one if you have one in play, but once it sticks, especially against control, you just play 2 lands each turn, you shuffle, it's like Future Sight, I mean...
Yeah, okay. Overgrown Battlement, that's fair enough, we understand that. You're obviously going to generate either at least 1 mana, hopefully more as you get multiple copies out. But my big question for you is, in some ways, not what is on this line, but what isn't on this line. Because when people think of Valakut Ramp, they think about cards like Harrow, they think about Khalni Garden Expedition. No copies of those. Why are they missing?
The key is to ramp steadily. First, you start with 2 mana and then you want to go up to 6, but you'll hit 4 or 5 on the way, basically.
Yep.
And the Battlement does just that. Just like Explore, it will ramp you up to 4 mana. So, or you can play a tapped land. And this makes the Oracle, in my opinion, it makes it playable, because you can actually have 4 mana on turn 3. So the people playing Khalni Garden Expedition, they are not actually ramping. They are hoping to explore and fetch land or harrow on the next turn, which is a little more powerful because you get more lands in the long run and more triggers, more Valakut triggers.
Yep.
But it will not make your turn 4 and 5, or no, sorry, it will not make your turn 3 and 4 more impressive.
Okay. Is there also an element of nervousness with Harrow, with the fact that you have to sacrifice the land straight away against a field where control just go, oh, thanks very much, you've just essentially land destructed yourself as I mana leak you or whatever?
Of course. Against aggressive decks, it can actually be better to cast Harrow because you want to disrupt them with a Lightning Bolt. But actually there's not that much aggro decks in the format anyway, so people, especially after boarding, they will have mana leak, Flash Freeze, Spell Pierce. You don't want to cast Khalni Garden Expedition and then sit there with your Harrow, which is actually the perfect draw, but it just
not against that.
It's not playable. So
sure.
I play some creatures which can't be Spell Pierced, and if they counter them with mana leak, I have something up my sleeve.
All right. Now, obviously, when you have all this money, you've got to do something with it, and we have 4 Primeval Titan and then 3 Avenger of Zendikar. Now, Primeval Titan, we all know about. We go and fetch our Valakuts, we go and fetch any number of land over a course of turns. That's game over if it sits there for a while. But Avenger of Zendikar has so many beautiful little synergies within the deck. Just talk us through how great Avenger is.
Well, if you have enough lands, it wins the game on its own. If you hit him with Summoning Trap, you usually generate enough land drops such that the plants are lethal immediately. It's a little worse in this deck because the sheer amount of lands is not completely. This is why it's only 3. But
okay. So in a sense, compared to San Diego, where you went overboard, if you like, on the land, this time you're slightly under the curve for traditionally what you'd want to do with an Avenger.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Finally, down the bottom, we've got a little bit of utility. Let's get Lightning Bolt to get things out of the way, or just final points of damage when you've Valakuted them down to 4, 5, 6, a couple of Lightning Bolts to the head, and then Summoning Trap. This is one of those cards that really has people coming and going. They have to respect it, but they can't do much about it. They counter something, and then you've got the trap. End of their turn, you've got all this mana, you can cast the trap. There are just so many ways you can use it to devastating effect.
Actually, what you want to do is to play it when it might get countered.
Yeah.
So you don't want your creature to be countered and then play the trap, because then you only have 65 or 70%. But if you say go and you always have the pressure on your opponent to play the trap, he will have to leave 4, 5, 6 mana open. And even if he has all the Mindbreak traps in the world, if he can't cast anything, there's just no tomorrow.
Okay. Was there a point during testing for day 1 of Worlds here where you felt like you were in the same place, both mentally and also metagamely, if you like, as San Diego, where you went, you know what? Everyone says this is the best deck. I now have the best version of the best deck. I'm really in with a shout. A lot of people haven't been very excited about day 1 here. They've been a bit nervous. Feels like you came ready to play.
Yeah, basically. Once I had overcome the jet lag, I noticed that the metagame is really very clearly defined. There's blue-white control, maybe some blue-black control, and then you can count the aggressive decks. I think it's only 2 viable ones.
A bit of black-red vampires, maybe a little bit of Boros.
Exactly.
And like the white, we need quest decks, obviously.
Of course, but that's more of a combo deck.
That's right, yeah.
So, and it's probably also hard to beat if they get the perfect draw. I mean, this is much more unfair than this perfect draw.
Yeah. And being unfair is what it's all about if you want to be a Pro Tour champion like Simon Goertzen of Germany. The king of Valakut on day 1, 5-1 going into day 2 with draft. Maybe he's en route for another top 8. Until we meet later in the weekend, for Simon Goertzen, I'm your host Richard Hagan saying bye.